a Monday edition of Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All studio at the Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. Lots to get to today as the Wisconsin Badgers fall in the round of 32 to BYU in March Madness. Badgers women's hockey, by the way, winning a national championship game last night. Not too shabby over Ohio State, their 8th national championship. So congratulations to the Badgers women's hockey team. Head coach Mark Johnson winning their 8th national championship. But we're going to dive into the sad stuff today. Badgers basketball out in the round of 32, losing Saturday night to BYU. Marquette losing Friday night to New Mexico. Their season over in the round of 64. Which head coach would you rather have? We will dive into that throughout the show today. So feel free to chime in on that one throughout today. As always, I am joined by JOSHY DiMaggio here in Milwaukee. Hunter Vaughn back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Saw this comment come across from Friday's show. Quote, "Good Lord, that hairy guy on the left is maybe the most incompetent and zero objectivity individual I've seen in a long, long time. Just pure hatred and delusion." That, of course, is Josh DiMaggio. Hi, Joshy.
What did I do on Friday to make someone so mad?
We talked about Aaron Rodgers.
One of those guys.
Yeah, one of those guys indeed.
As much as people get after me for the way I talk about Aaron Rodgers, one, I think it's a deep look into themselves a lot of times.
Sure.
And two, they seem to respond with a lot more anger than I do.
Good Lord, that hairy guy on the left.
It's just like, why are you so attached to somebody who doesn't care about you?
Do you think you're hairy?
I mean, I have a beard, which is, people are seeing my face for the most part. I think you, and I never plan to do this, but if you were to see the rest of me, you would be probably surprised at the lack of hair I have.
Sure.
And that's just like, I don't have chest hair really at all.
Really?
My arms aren't all that hairy. It's just
the face.
Not a hairy back.
Okay.
I don't got any of that going.
Okay. Well, that's good, I think.
To each their own. Some people like it, some don't.
I just got me excited when I saw, good Lord, that hairy guy on the left is maybe the most incompetent and zero objectivity individual we've seen in a long time. Okay. Want to get to the Badgers and the NCAA tournament in just a moment, but first I have to tell you about a story that I encountered on Saturday. So I was driving up to my buddy's place up north a little bit. Hung out with two of my college friends, watched some basketball Saturday, stopped at a convenience store on my way up there Saturday morning, though. And the first thing I hear when I walk in the convenience store is call 911, which is always what you want to hear. A gentleman was having a little bit of a medical emergency. We have confirmed he is okay. But that was going on in the store.
What type of medical emergency?
I don't know, to be real honest with you. But look,
there wasn't like blood and gore.
No blood.
Okay.
It was more, I think he was having trouble breathing.
Yes.
And ultimately he was taken care of, and we were able to find out that he was okay.
Happy to hear.
So that's why I bring that up, but just want to set up the context of the situation. So obviously there's a lot of attention being drawn to that happening right when I walk in. I went and grabbed a couple of things, then get in line for the register. And another individual walks in. Hunter, give me just a random male name, please.
Philip.
All right, so let's just use the word Philip then for the character in the story. So a man walks into the store and he yells, "Do you have a man named Philip that works here? I need to talk to Philip. I don't know if he's real or not, but I need to talk to Philip who works here." And I get to the register and I'm talking to the guy that's checking me out. And I say, "Hey, are you Philip?" He goes, "No, but he's right next to me. He's right here." And I go, "Philip, that guy's yelling for you." And now I'm checked out and about to leave the store. And this man approaches Philip and says, "Philip, you've been texting my wife."
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is right. And now I bring up the fact that there was a little bit of a medical emergency going on because now we have cheating accusations and a medical emergency all happening in the matter of 90 seconds.
Uh-huh.
What do you think I did?
You probably stayed and stared and watched.
I wish that was the answer. I actually left.
You ran?
I got out of there.
You got to see out your texting your wife.
That's what everybody said to me.
Yeah.
So Sunday morning, I went back to the same place
Did you ask Philip? Is he okay?
I was going to ask Philip. Philip was not there. The only man that was there was the man who I heard yell, call 911. So it didn't feel appropriate to ask him.
I would have asked.
Given that he was probably distracted with something else going on.
Yeah, but once that man was taken and successfully taken care of, you don't think inside of the same establishment they weren't going, hey, did you hear what happened to Philip?
Yeah, I mean, it was bizarre.
I
felt like I was in Bizarro world.
There's some pretty big gas stations, but word travel, what is there at any given time, like 10 people there working?
Yeah.
Word would travel.
Yeah, you're right.
It's human nature.
Yeah, you're right about that. So bad on me for not asking and following up on that one.
What was the age difference in the Philip and the accuser of Philip?
Great question. 20 plus years.
I had a feeling.
Philip was a younger gentleman, probably younger than me.
Did you see Philip's face when "you've been texting my wife" happened?
I did.
How did he react?
He looked confused.
Probably because Philip had no idea. Seems like Philip had no idea that the person he was texting was married.
The only follow-up I got was, who's your wife? That's the only thing I caught.
Yeah, that's a fair question.
And that's when I left the store.
Yeah. You can't leave.
I agree. Bad on me. Had there not been a medical emergency happening,
I don't think so. I
like
think
an ambulance on the way. I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
It just felt like I needed to leave. It felt like
that's a stand there and wait, and maybe start antagonizing.
See,
maybe toss some comments out there.
Wouldn't go that far.
Philip, you dog, you.
Because that's how somebody starts throwing hands at Strouf. But, like, you live so much of your life for content and sharing things on this show and KBN. You had the crown jewel of content right in front of you, and you just let it slip through your fingers.
I promise to the loyal listeners, even the guy who hates me and thinks I'm not objective.
The guy who thinks they're hairy?
Yes. If that ever happens to me, I'm staying and watching the whole thing play out.
I would record it even. Like, I'm going that far. I want to be able to relive it and make sure I have every detail of what happened within that moment. I'm not sending it out to everybody. Like, I'm not doing that, but I need it for my own records.
See, that to me is a little sketchy. That gets into if the guy who was accusing Philip of texting his wife turns and sees you. I can't imagine that fella's going to be too thrilled. And that leads to potential fisticuffs. You just standing in a store and seeing this. Like, this guy is clearly okay with this being public information because to the
point where he made a public dispute out of it. Confrontation,
He walked in and asked the guy's name out loud.
Loudly.
And didn't say, hey, do you have a second? Can we have a quick chat here? He said it in front of people.
You've been texting my wife.
Yes.
To be honest with you,
it's a great tease.
It entirely threw me off when I walked in and the first thing I heard was, can you call 911?
Yes.
And then that's followed up with, you've been texting my wife 2 minutes later. So I'm standing there thinking to myself, where the hell am I?
What city were you in?
I was in Plymouth, Wisconsin.
Plymouth. They're getting wild out there.
Yeah, apparently. So,
well, we have a teammate who is from Plymouth in Alex Gravatt. I need to, we're going to have to try and get some information from him. Like, is this on brand for Plymouth? I've only ever been there to swim. Like, if it was my hometown, 100% on brand, that's a Tuesday. Like, had things like this happen before in other stores and places I worked. Like, this was a normal thing.
And maybe, and to be real honest with you, maybe this guy was just screwing with him, right? Like, because he walked in and he said, honey, I'm home. And then he started yelling about Philip.
That's a guy looking for a confrontation.
But it seems like this is a guy who frequents the store, right? That he walked in and yelled, honey, I'm home, not realizing there was a man needing medical attention. I mean, it was just, I didn't know where I was. I just wanted to get the hell out of there.
I think that's just a guy riled up, ready to get into it.
Maybe.
Like, you could have witnessed like a fight happening, or the guy. I mean, that guy clearly shame had surpassed him.
Yep.
Because I definitely wouldn't announce in front of other people my wife's been texting you. Who, if I were to guess, the younger guy's probably a little more handsome, probably a little more in shape. Probably a reason maybe his wife is texting him. You know, those are all things that for me would cause self-reflection. To this guy, he said, I got to go put a stop to this, which is always fascinating when it comes to like cheating and cheaters.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is, why you would confront the person on the other end is bizarre to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway,
well, you don't know that he didn't confront the cheater.
But maybe this was like, but so I looked at the 911 scanner to see if anybody, if there was a physical altercation.
It didn't come to blows?
Escalated. No police called.
And we do have to be honest here. It wouldn't be unsurprising for someone to not catch a hint as they're texting someone, saying from Philip's end.
Yeah.
That is
here's
also
the thing.
possible.
Here's my theory. I think Philip was a new employee and this was him getting hazed.
Oh.
I don't think this was real. Because it seemed like this guy was too comfortable in this environment. And maybe he caught wind that Philip had just started. So he wants to get after Philip a little bit.
I mean, that's
my take.
That is some wild hazing for Plymouth. Funny. If that is the case, that would be hilarious.
Creative
Have
and
the guy
great,
shaking in his boots? Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, all right, there's your story. All right, let's get to Saturday's loss for the Wisconsin Badgers. They fall 91-89 to BYU in the round of 32 Saturday night in a game that really felt like the Badgers weren't totally in it until they were, and then they weren't again. It was a game where I just feel like it perfectly epitomizes what the experience of being a Wisconsin sports fan is. You build up your hope, all of a sudden the game tips off, and you're like, uh-oh, this ain't good. Hope is dwindling. And then at one point, I literally said out loud, this one's over. And then all of a sudden I said, maybe this one isn't over. And my hope got built back up. And then all of a sudden, the Badgers within 6, within 4, within 5, within 4. I go, holy crap, they're going to have an opportunity to win this game. And then they have the ball down 2 with an opportunity to send this game to overtime or win it. And the call by the Badgers, after sleeping on it for a few days, I still stand by it. I understand living and dying by a guy who had 37 points, right? And trusting him to create his shot. But at the end of the day, BYU was just the better basketball team on Saturday. And that's just what happens this time of year. Sometimes you run into a team that is just better than you that night. And that's what BYU was. They were hitting clutch shots. When you score 91 points in an NCAA tournament game, odds are you're going to win that game. And ultimately, the Cougars did. A couple of things now, 2 days removed from the Badgers' loss, that is bothering me. Number one, and it's something we talked about a week ago today, I don't view this as a home game. I didn't view the travel as a huge advantage. The BYU fan base showed up. It's as simple as that. I don't view the location of the game as an issue. I don't view the altitude as an issue. That just felt like, when we talked about it a week ago, pre-built-in excuses, and it feels like that again today. Number two, don't understand the Greg Gard haters that have come out of the woodwork once again, saying the Badgers need a change, the Badgers need to fire Gard, the Badgers need a different head coach. I don't know what more you needed other than not getting to the Sweet 16. What more you needed out of Greg Gard and that staff this year to prove you that they are worthy, to prove to you that they are capable, to prove to you that they are the best option for the University of Wisconsin. They reinvented the offense. They went into the portal. They unlocked John Tonje. They were in the Big Ten championship game for the second year in a row. They were a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament after being picked 12th in the Big Ten preseason coaches poll. This is a team that exceeded expectations, blew them out of the water, mind you. It completely reinvented what Wisconsin basketball is and the brand of basketball they play, and did it really, really, really well. Greg Gard and his staff deserve a ton of credit. So I don't really get the hatred. I don't get the knocks. I don't get the complaining. At the end of the day, BYU was the better team, and that sucks. And the Badgers still have not been back to the second weekend since 2017, which stinks. But at the end of the day, Greg Gard is the right choice. He is the right head coach for this program. And while it is disappointing the way the season came to an end, this season to me was 100% still a success given the expectations going in. It stinks John Tonje didn't get to play in the Sweet 16. I get that, because he was an awesome Badger that you're only going to get to enjoy 1 year of. But all in all, I hate the complaining. I hate the excuses that are being made. Wisconsin just wasn't the better team on Saturday night. And that happens. And that's that for me. JOSHY, as we are now 2 days removed from Wisconsin's loss, where are you at?
I've got a lot of thoughts in response to what you said. One, you played a hot team that was playing extremely well, and a team that shot extremely well from the field. Made it difficult. There were certainly spots where the Badgers could have played better, but I think it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to want more, and it's okay to expect more. But any idea of moving on from Greg Gard after an entire reinvention of the program in a way that honestly, if you were to have asked me a year ago, I didn't think Greg Gard and the Badgers were capable of. I think that's foolish. If you seen what we saw this year, gives me an amount of encouragement I didn't expect or think really possible. I think it's the way the offense changed, the way they've embraced the NIL transfer portal era to, let's be frank here, a school that played an antiquated style of basketball for a long time. A style that many of us Badgers fans found ourselves defending despite knowing there's probably a better, more entertaining, and a more recruitable way. Where before the Badgers, there was pretty much only a couple type of players who really made sense for the Badgers to recruit and for them to come here. Now, in the era of transfers, where there's going to be guys every single year available, there's going to be plenty of people who will look at Wisconsin and say, that's a place, not only can I win, but I can achieve. And I can be a fixture. I can be part of their scoring offense. It's no longer the scoring 50, 60 points a game. That's gone. I think you can consider the season a failure. You didn't make the Sweet 16, but from where we started to where we ended is worlds different.
Correct.
And
100%.
I feel nothing but encouragement from what Greg Gard did in this season. I think that is incredibly impressive. It is, I mean, he said it. He said it everywhere. He's talked about how, there's two paths to go here. You can try and fight it and bemoan it, or you can embrace it and try and get the best out of it. I think the Badgers are in a good place right now, and I expect it to keep this path to continue to grow. I do think you do have to start looking. It is, hey, we need more. We need a Sweet 16 here. We need a deeper run, but this is a reinvention. This is building. This stuff just doesn't change over a single season. There's more to be had here. There's more progress there. I think a lot of it too is a lot of Johnny come latelys.
Yep.
I don't think people were watching the Badgers this season. I think they watched 2 tournament games. One that was probably closer than you would like to start, which you ended up covering the spread and winning, but it was close at times. And then this past game, which if you watch 2 games of the season or the Big Ten tournament and the tournament, you don't get a full idea of what happened. You don't realize who John Tonje is. You don't realize how important John Blackwell was, what Max Klesmet was to, and how those guys have taken different paths, but have gotten there and got a team into a really good situation. I don't want to give an excuse of the travel or the home. It does play a factor, but it's very minimal.
Sure, but it's
not the
small
reason they won or lost.
Right. Totally
it was
agree.
a 2-point game.
Right.
I don't think them having an extra day of rest makes them score on that last drive. I do think you made the right call. I think maybe Tonje probably should have realized, this isn't the matchup I wanted. But that's bang, bang. It was his shot. They drew it up for him.
Yeah.
With that much time left, you don't really have much time to search for an open guy and make a pass to hopefully get an open shot.
No, right.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I totally agree. And that's the guy who you want the ball in his hands at the end of the game. I want to go back to something you said, though, because the transfer portal opened today, which that's a problem.
Scottie Pippen's kid transferring.
Yeah, Scottie Pippen's kid who plays for Michigan. Who is still in the NCAA tournament, announced he was transferring today, which is just confusing.
He'll be playing this weekend.
It's like, I saw J.J. Watt tweeted it. Like, that's like free agency in the NFL opening during wild card weekend. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It doesn't. It shouldn't. But it is the NCAA, and they do things wrong and backwards and
quite often
incorrectly.
Yeah,
so
that's what they do.
As shocking as it may seem, I think you should have zero shock that it's something that would happen in college.
No, I won't argue with that. Now, I will say this, looking at the transfer portal and something you said earlier, which is this is now an attractive brand of basketball.
Yeah.
So obviously NIL and how much money you're going to get paid will matter in the transfer portal.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. But What also matters is the brand of basketball you play. And I think for the first time in a very long time, especially in this era of NAL and transfer portal, Wisconsin plays an incredibly attractive brand of basketball. They were scoring 81 points a game this year, right? I mean, they're shooting the three ball. Their bigs are shooting threes. Like, think about how clutch Steven Crowell was earlier in that game against BYU and shooting from beyond the arc. So all in all, I think this team is in a much better spot right now than they were a year ago when everybody was transferring out. Chucky Hepburn, AJ Storr, all on the outs, right? Connor Segan, all leaving for different Power 5 opportunities. But Wisconsin found a way to build through the portal mainly, right? Think about the Xavier Amos, the Cam Hunter, and obviously John Tonjes of the world that come in. And Tonje really the only one that had a major impact, and the other guys that played significant minutes were mostly developed guys, right? Think about the Nolan Winters and the Steven Crowells and Max Klesmitz, who have been here for several years. This was a huge offseason and season for Greg Gard, right? It was a huge prove-it year for the head coach of the Badgers, and he proved it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Greg Gard needed to prove he had the ability to adapt to this day and age of college basketball, and he passed with flying colors, man. I mean, it wasn't even close. He changed the brand of basketball they play. He fills the holes through the portal. I've been saying this all season, but something I was really impressed with prior to the season during Coaches Week that we did back in November, when I talked with Greg Gard, I felt like he could have been a guy that complained. Right? I don't understand this era of college basketball. You see guys like Tony Bennett retiring right before the season because he just can't handle it and adapt. Greg didn't say any of that. He adapted. He filled through the portal. Kirk Penny comes in as an assistant coach for the second year, and they changed the brand of basketball they play, and it worked. And this is a team that was in the top 4 of the Big Ten. Well, they finished 5th, I guess, in the regular season, but they were top 4 of the Big Ten all season long. They make it back to the Big Ten championship game in the Big Ten tournament. They have a number 3 seed. They have a National Player of the Year candidate. Everything you could have asked Greg Gard to do other than make the second weekend, he did this year, which I think deserves a ton of credit and deserves your faith moving forward. So I will never understand walking away from that loss to BYU and going, Greg Gard's the problem, because that's just not the case.
It's a lack of ability to regulate your emotions. I was very disappointed in the outcome.
Yep.
I had looked at it beforehand and said, hey, these are all winnable games. I knew BYU was a good offense. I knew they could shoot the lights out. I knew they could do all that. I knew they posed a potential problem, but that's the reality of the NCAA tournament. You're going to face some teams that you don't have the best lineup or matchup for, but you need to go out and win by any means necessary. It doesn't, I know firing coaches is the classic, like, sports radio fallback whenever failure happens. I don't think programs that are building or are as successful as the Badgers were this season would ever go about that. It doesn't make sense. That's how you find yourself in a cycle of hiring and firing and chasing that dragon. Because let's be honest, are the Wisconsin Badgers a top 16 program in the nation, or were they thought of that coming into the season or the previous 2? No, they're probably a little bit lower than that, and they need to, any achievement, like the Bull Ryan era, you're punching above your weight class.
Yeah.
That's just what it was. And I think Greg Gard is getting the most out of what he has in a changing landscape in college sports. I do think it is fair to put expectations of a Sweet 16 and a deep run on him, but not after that season, not after that complete reinvention. Now, if it was another year of not in the tournament or competing for an NIT, yeah, I'd listen.
Yeah.
I'm not this time around.
That's fair.
It's called March Madness. It's because things happen. Things don't always go the way you expect or you want.
Right.
It's part of it.
Now, this tournament has been a little bit more chalky than other tournaments, right? I think you have all 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds other than 2 6s instead of 3s and a 10 instead of a 2. That was the big upset, Arkansas over St. John's. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, like, you don't have a ton of huge upsets this year in March Madness, but it is called that for a reason. Things do not always go the way you think they are going to. And unfortunately, that was the case this year with the Badgers, but that was still a pretty evenly matched game, right? A 6 seed and a 3 seed between Wisconsin and BYU. So
that team had just beat Iowa State, like a top 5 team in the nation, twice in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a They're good.
They are indeed. Yeah.
And they have a real good chance to beat Alabama.
They do. They do. I mean, if they shoot the way they did, right? Alabama's the highest
They shot
scoring.
nearly 50%.
Yeah. 46, I think it was, from outside.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, really impressive. They made timely shots. They made a bunch of threes. They're a good team. And Alabama obviously is the highest scoring team in the country, but you put up 91 against Wisconsin, that's a sign you're capable of competing with anybody. So I got nothing but respect for BYU and the way they played, especially that kid whose great-grandfather invented tater tots, Richie Saunders.
That guy's going to haunt my dreams.
Yeah, that's fair. Just add him to the list, man. And we'll talk if Wisconsin sports are cursed or if this is a pressure is privilege type conversation here in a minute. Want to go over to Hunter, though, and then we will get to some Marquette and Shaka and Gard conversation. Hunter, go ahead.
Can you guys explain this to me? Because I've really been confused by it for the last probably third of the Badgers season here. Like, Greg Gard, he struck gold with John Tonje. Just because he got one guy that nobody knew he was going to be what he is doesn't suddenly mean he has completely embraced the transfer portal. He completely understands it now. This is how he's going to work going forwards. Like, he got one guy. The other two guys he got gave him like 3 points a game and barely cracked double digits if they were lucky any night in minutes. Like, I'm just saying I don't understand it. Like, okay, great. He struck gold with one guy. He needs to do it more before we start saying that, like, oh, yep, he's got it figured out. He knows what he's doing with college basketball transfer portal.
It's very simple. Very, very, very simple.
Clearly, it's not if I don't understand.
Okay, thank you. The transfer portal was typically not something that Gard used to be starters and main contributors on a team.
Yep.
He then went out and got a guy who was in the running for National Player of the Year. He is willing to, and instead of fighting against it, embracing it. Not every transfer is going to work. I don't think that's what anyone's claiming. But to hit a home run the way he did matters.
Hold on. Yes, I agree. But let's not act like John Tonje was the first. A.J. Storr was the first.
Yeah.
He did this last year, right? A.J. Storr averaged 16 points a game for the Badgers last year, and he was by far the leading scorer, and he was a guy that was only there 1 year and came from the transfer portal. So it's 2 years in a row that the Badgers' leading scorer was not on the team the previous year and was not a true freshman, right? Like, these are guys that came from elsewhere. I think the point is, Hunter, in terms of his approach to the transfer portal, I'm not necessarily making the case your best player or your leading scorer next year needs to come from the portal, right? Because I think John Blackwell, assuming he stays and doesn't get a bag from elsewhere, which is very much realistic, by the way, I would say that it is not, it is not the expectation to go get your top dog, but it is an expectation to go get contributors. Max Klesmet was a guy that came from the transfer portal. Let's not forget, right? He came from Wofford, and he's been in Wisconsin the last 3 years now. He's obviously a Wisconsin guy growing up in Neenah, but he was a guy that was not initially recruited by Greg Gard in Wisconsin. So I think to use Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers, is like the opposite of this, right? Understand your shortcomings, understand your mistakes, and you have in college sports, probably an even bigger opportunity to correct those. Right? Okay. Now you know who's coming into your roster next year. At least if we assume everybody stays other than the guys graduating, right? So Stephen Crowell, Max Klesmet, John Tonje, Carter Gilmore are all gone. Sounds to me like you need a big in the portal who can start alongside Nolan Winter. And it sounds to me like you have plenty of opportunity to either A, develop your backcourt, or B, recruit for your backcourt, or C, both. Right? I mean, there's going to be opportunities for guys like Cam Hunter and Jack Robeson, who was a freshman, to be real contributors next year. But I think when you talk about your approach to the portal, I think Gard has done a nice job in recent years. That's not to say his entire tenure, but I would say the last 2 years or 3 years, he's found key contributors through the portal. And so I guess I don't want to say he's figured it out and he's the best in the country at it by any means, Hunter. That's not the case I'm making. But it seems like he's got a good rhythm and a good understanding of filling those needs via the portal. And that's the second year in a row. It just so happened to be their leading scorer.
Yeah, I guess that was my thing is like it feels like Badger fans have just jumped to, oh, okay, AJ Storr, John Tonje hit. He's the best at it now. Like that. that's been very much the conversation on Twitter when it comes to Greg Gard and the transfer portal. It's like, okay, you still have to consistently do it if you're going to put him in that conversation. Like, doing it, and I'll be honest, kind of forgot about AJ Storr because of the season he's had this year at Kansas. Like,
It's fair.
that was a slip up that, he was on his 5th school.
Yeah. He's going somewhere else, right?
I've not
Probably.
seen that yet, but I would not be shocked.
Yeah. Also, Max Klesmit and Kamari McGee were transfers in 2022. You also put that
McGee,
next to
that's
Ben
right.
Carlson, which was probably not as much of a hit there. I think Max and Kamari were both good contributors. So it's like, to me, it's I don't expect another John Tange in 2026. Well, it's still going to be 2025, but the tournament will be then. I don't know how many of those guys come around. That just doesn't seem like a thing. But the ability to find one and the ability to build through the portal, I think, is indicative of somebody who at least has figured out the system and how it can benefit his team within even the margins.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just I'm looking at a list from last year's power rankings from the transfer portal. On the list, I'm looking at AJ Storr was the 9th best transfer. Notable guys that were not on the top 10. Chucky Hepburn, who was really good at Louisville. John Tange, obviously, who was very, very good at Wisconsin this year. Like, some of these are right? Like John L. Davis, who went from Florida Atlantic to Arkansas, was great. Davon Smith, who went to St. John's. Kadari Richmond, who went to St. John's, were both in the top 10. Coleman Hawkins at Kansas State was good for them, obviously not a tournament team. JT Toppin, who went from New Mexico to Texas Tech. Like, there's some right names here.
Yeah.
But AJ Storr at 9 is just funny because he's literally a role player for them, despite a nice game the other night for him.
I'm fascinated to see more
Arkansas.
Xavier Amos.
I am too.
I thought I was impressed in a way in the tournament, which I didn't expect to be for him. He seems a little crazy.
Yeah.
Seems a little crazy, little hectic at times.
Erratic.
But sometimes that works because people don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, he's a guy. I mean, he's still young. He'll be back. Only played 6 minutes in the loss to BYU and shot 0 for 3. But I'd be curious to see more of him too. Right, 6'7".
I mean, on the defensive side of the ball too, he is
pesky,
a factor.
Yeah,
he had 2 blocks against Montana.
I think so. I think that's right. Yeah, he had a nice game against Montana in double-digit minutes. So yeah, we'll see more from him. I'd assume he's only a junior. He'll be back next year, assuming he doesn't enter the portal. But I guess we can't really assume when it comes to that.
No.
So you never really know what happens. But no Wisconsin names, at least as of now.
On quickly here, I'm on 3. They have the rating for Xavier Amos ranked higher than that of John Tanche. Like, as what it means.
Yeah. Well, but that's again, I think that's why it's so important to highlight how great of a surprise he was.
Right.
Because nobody expected him to become that good, have 37 points in their elimination game, which is the most the Badgers ever scored in a tournament.
What an all-time game that's not going to be remembered.
Well
said. Imagine if he makes that shot, which obviously wasn't close, but he makes that shot. That's like legendary all-time.
Yeah, to go down with 39 points or 40 points in a win. Yeah, that'll be remembered for a while. I don't think he'd ever pay for another drink at the college club.
No
doubt. So Marquette loses Friday to New Mexico. Hunter is our resident Marquette fan. I cheer for both. We know this, but probably a bigger Badger fan. Marquette loses to New Mexico. I think as we talked Friday on the show, Hunter was not with us on Friday. Me and Josh just kind of viewed that as what was going to happen. We expected New Mexico to win. They did. They almost made it to the Sweet 16. They lose on a buzzer beater to Maryland last night. Hunter, I called you a Doomsday fan last week. I don't know if you have the clip or not.
I do.
Go ahead and roll it.
The clip I have isn't you calling me that, but it's of what I said about this game.
All right, let's hear it.
I mean, I think the bigger issue for Marquette is Shaka's refusal to do anything with a big. Even when he had Olivier Maxi Prosper and he had Oso Iguodaro, they could not win rebounding battles. And now for this first-round matchup, they've got Nelly Jr. Joseph, who averages a double-double. He is going to make Ben Gold look like his son out there. Yeah. Ben Gold's going to get beat up and end up with a black eye in this game because he's not ready to play the physical type of basketball that he's going to see. And Shaka refuses to do anything with it. His recruiting classes doesn't get a big that can actually go out there and dominate. Doesn't even care about it. And they're going to get. So, yeah. And they got beat up against New Mexico, and I was right. So I'm tired of being called a doomsday fan when I say this, and then I'm right about Marquette and the Cowboys every time.
Two things can be true. You can be a doomsday fan, and you can be right. Mm-hmm. And that's the case here. You were right, by the way, on Nelly Jr. Joseph. That guy was good.
Yeah.
I don't know if he made Ben Gould look like his son, but I jumped on
out of the game.
He did. I did jump on Marquette College game day ahead of this game on Friday with Brian D and Matt Yazel. And I made a comment, and it just stuck out to me what Brian D had to say about Ben Gould. And, I said, sometimes I feel like Ben Gould wants to be a shooting guard more than a center. And Brian D referred to him as a Gen Z big. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a clever way to phrase that.
Yeah. That's what I feel like when I'm watching Michigan. You've got 14 feet of guys wired down the arc.
Yeah, right. Why are they waiting to pop a three? Just the era of college basketball we live in, I guess. So we will see.
One.
Uh-oh.
Just want to say, hate to see that loss to New Mexico. Two, I'm looking at a chart here.
Oh, boy.
It is head coaches, their appearances in the tournament, the expected amount of wins, which is based on your seeding, and then the actual amount of wins. I'm looking here, and I see one guy on a tier all by himself with minus 4.1 expected wins versus actual wins in the tournament. You want to guess who that is?
I'm going to guess it's Shaka Smart.
That'd be the one.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very interesting offseason here for him. A guy who doesn't want his players to have agents, which in the NIL era is the reality of the situation. Many players do. That's how they seek out. That's how they find new places to go. And a guy who prefers team continuity to the transfer portal. Now, it seems like just based on purely the amount of guys who are going to be finished with school that you would have to, but it'll be interesting to see which direction he decides to go.
Yeah. Who do you have more faith in? Gard or Shaka?
Gard.
I agree.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I think both of these are really good college basketball coaches. Mm-hmm. I still believe in Shaka. Mm-hmm. I think you can't take away the fact he did get them to a Sweet 16 last year, which Gard has not done since 2017. Which is 8 years ago. But the way Gard has embraced the portal and used it to team build versus Shaka, who deserves credit for being able to retain everybody and build culture and do more of the long-term building we used to see 10, 20 years ago now in college basketball. That deserves credit.
It is different when expectations matter more, I think, than how we view somebody, and expectations can change, but the expectations for the past 2 years for Marquette is a whole lot more than they've seen.
Yes, agreed. I just, this year was so big for me for Gard, because that was a guy whose seat I would argue was at least a little bit warm entering the year.
There was a little heat coming from underneath it.
And for Shaka, obviously, there was none after a Sweet 16 appearance and Tyler Kolek and Osa Iguodaro developing them into NBA-level players. But Marquette kind of crumbled down the stretch, where Wisconsin did not. It felt like Wisconsin was playing their best ball towards the end of the year. And they had been playing ball much above the level I think we all anticipated throughout the course of the year. So all in all, I go Gard. I'm curious where Hunter goes. If I said pick one, Gard or Shaka, being the Marquette fan you are, but really a fan of both, do you agree with us or are you going with Shaka?
My thing with Shaka is still that, I think it's different for Gard when Zach Kinzinger, who will be coming in next year to Wisconsin, is a 4-star recruit. Gard doesn't typically get those guys, where Shaka's classes are full of 4s and an occasional 5 in there. So he's going to give those guys a longer leash than, like Josh said last week, where he's like, well, you can just tell those guys to walk. yeah, they're going to redshirt these true freshmen. Then as redshirt freshmen or sophomores is when they really get minutes. Like he's going to give those higher level recruits a longer leash. So like the knock on him about the transfer portal, I don't know is fully fair. My concern with Shaka is still he gets out-coached regularly once you get past that first or second media timeout in the first half and teams adjust. I don't see that with Gard as much. Like, I'm riding the fence here, and I can't pick either one. It'd be a coin toss if I absolutely had to. Like, I would just pull out a quarter and say, I'm going to just flip a coin because there's benefits to both of them.
Yeah, and it feels pretty coin flippy, which is why I like the question. I'm curious from you if you want to chime in. ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube. See a little over 60 of you rocking with us. And they're live today. You can also, after the fact, if you're listening, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Would be curious on your thoughts. Shaka or Gard? I think why this is a fun question is, A, despite not either team being in the second weekend, I think it emphasizes the fact that the state of Wisconsin is in good hands right now, right? I think these are two really good basketball coaches that coach two really well-done programs the last couple of years. And that puts the state of Wisconsin on a national map, which I appreciate. I wrote this question. I've decided I don't love it.
Good. It's a good thing. Good thing you planned this ahead of time.
Yeah, I was going to rip you apart for it, so that's why I left it. And I didn't say anything in our pre-show meeting because, like, this is one of your worst. Like, this is bad. You're coming the day after the Badgers win a national championship in women's hockey. Their 8th title. Yeah. Like, I literally pulled up the game-winning goal in case anybody missed it.
Well,
so
it's funny, you Hunter, right earlier he said leaving the state in good hands, and I thought that was a natural transition into Kirsten Sims and the just dominance. 20 years of domination from the Wisconsin Badgers women hockey team.
So I was more thinking like Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers here.
Oh, so you're
Badgers like basketball and football.
Jeez.
Calm down over there, would you? No, just like the main five. And the fact that they never seem to get over the hump. Now, volleyball gets over the hump. Women's hockey gets over the hump. And again yesterday. Do you have the video from ESPNU of Kirsten Sims?
Yeah, I've got the game-winning goal.
Hey, let's fire it up because
here comes Eden. Looking, fired, save, make, rebound, scores! Sims wins the national championship in overtime.
Love it. On the Gophers' home ice too. Makes it even better.
That'll give you goosebumps.
Against a team they lost to
last year. Yeah.
Yep.
Indeed.
And earlier in the season.
I don't think we can overstate the fact that the 19 seconds left, coach looks at the team and says, who wants the penalty shot?
Immediately raises her hand.
Sims raises her hand, goes out, scores, and then follows it up with the sudden death goal in overtime. And mind you, this is the second game-winning goal for her in 3 years in national championship games.
Yeah, incredible.
That I don't want to say statue, but that's borderline statue status. That is.
Oh, her jersey should be in the rafters.
As unbelievable of a college career as you could ever fathom.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, how many jerseys do they have retired for Wisconsin women's hockey? Do we know the answer to that?
That I don't know. I was also just going to say, because I've seen some Ohio State fans dropping this one too, two things that they need to understand about hockey and the rules of hockey, because clearly the state of Ohio doesn't know how the game of hockey works. You can't put your hand on the puck and cover it up in that blue area in front of the goal, also known as the crease, and then slide it under your body to keep it away from going in the goal. That is a penalty. So Wisconsin did get the right call there when they reviewed it by getting to pick the penalty shot or getting a power play, which in that spot, obviously you take the power play. Second point, on the penalty shot, The deke that she did to get the goalie going to the one side and then to the other is still clean. The puck didn't go backwards. She never moved away from the goal, and she never turned her back to the goal, which is what would make that then not count. So Ohio State just needs to learn hockey. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just not knowing puck.
I just need to make sure the entire state of Ohio. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, that penalty that was called, the best argument they can make is how do you call that there given the stakes? Because covering the puck in any sort, with your hand especially, in the crease is something that's like a pretty automatic and easy call. That is one that because that would prevent the team trying to score from doing. If you wanted to do that, you could just put your defender in the crease all the time and have them grabbing at the puck.
Yep, correct.
That's not something we want. It's also extremely dangerous.
Yeah, not a good idea.
I understand how it could happen to the young woman who did it, who I believe was a transfer from Wisconsin, that ended up getting the penalty called on her. That is one thing that it can't happen. In that situation, in those circumstances, that just can't happen because you are preventing a team who has a chance to tie the game to do so because you elected to use your hand.
Just a little cleanup. The only hockey jersey retired for either Badgers men's or women's hockey is Mark Johnson, the head coach of Wisconsin women's hockey. His number 10 jersey was retired back in 2018.
I mean, both those programs have had mega stars.
Yeah.
Mega stars, but they don't retire jerseys.
Yeah.
So, but this one feels like it has to happen.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's the case to be made that if men's hockey did it because of the history they had up until the last 15 years now, they'd run out of jerseys. If you were like, no, you can't have the jersey anymore.
Yeah.
So I kind of get why they don't do it because Wisconsin hockey historically is just that good.
Sure. I hear you. Well, congratulations to them. We're not even going to do the curse topic.
Good.
Yeah. Not a time. I think I also think
down,
after I mean the Bucks just won
4 years ago. Yeah.
That is very.
It's just
I'm
why when they
30
break our
years.
hearts they have to do it. They do it in dramatic fashion.
Oh, that's
Why can't I just lose? Why do
That's
I have to
sports,
lose in
dude.
dramatic fashion?
yeah.
That's sports.
You're talking about playoffs. The good teams play each other. They're generally pretty close losses.
Pressure is.
If you wanted to point to anything, the Packers have had some losses in the playoffs that are jaw-dropping, astounding in terms of how they managed to lose the game. But for the most part, and in recent memory, I don't know how many games I've thought the Packers were the better team and bad luck happened.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
And I also don't
Life
think
goes on.
you can start calling curse even for an individual team until you push into the 20 plus of not getting to the Super Bowl. So they still got a 5-year window here. They get outside of that 5-year window and haven't gone, but then let's have that conversation.
All right, fair enough. Save it for 5 years from now.
Yep.
We are 1 month away from the NFL draft. NFL draft starts 1 month from today, April 24th, up in Green Bay. Joshy, where are you on your draft prep? Are you getting in the weeds? Are you YouTube filming it? Film breakdowns? You watching pro days? Where are we at here with a month to go until draft time?
I have been doing mock draft simulators that you can find online.
Have you been?
Every single day. I've been watching and looking up some guys names that kind of pop up that I haven't seen, or somebody does impressive at their pro day. I'm tracking, obviously, all the guys that Goody is seeing at workouts for, and the guys they're having in for visits. That stuff all matters to the Packers historically. In recent memory, have used those top 30 visits to guys they fully intend to draft. There is no subterfuge or I love the word subterfuge. Any misleading with it. If you look at the guys who they've had in, you will find 4 or 5 guys every year from those top 30 visits who end up on the Packers. So that's sort of where I'm locking in mostly to what the Packers are going to do and figuring out, could we end the long drought of no wide receiver in the first round, or does it go the way we all expect with a defensive lineman or edge player?
Yeah,
Draft is top heavy in terms of
Give me a receiver.
Wide receivers.
Give me a receiver.
You can find a lot of now. The interesting thing when it comes to the draft is most often edge talent is all like first round picks, and they're most often probably like a top 10 pick, just because that position in specific is so based on athleticism.
Sure.
And the guys who are able to match production and athleticism, they go high, they get drafted high, you know who they are. Other positions you can find better picks later. It seems like defensive line and edge are deeper classes, which would make it available for the Packers to do in later rounds and find probably good contributors. The wide receivers really drops off after that, like Jaden Higgins. Mm-hmm. And there's some...
He's where? Tennessee?
Iowa State.
There
are some players that you could make a case for, but there would be... it would be like longer shot odds.
Okay.
Like a Trey Harris from Ole Miss, I believe, is a guy who's seen some love.
You know, it's wacky.
What?
You've mentioned both Ole Miss and Iowa State in the last 10 seconds.
Uh-huh.
So obviously they played yesterday here in Milwaukee.
Yes.
In March Madness. And I currently have a tweet open that highlights identical twins Sam and Ben Hutchins.
Yeah, the beat writers.
Sam is a beat writer for Ole Miss. Ben is a beat writer for Iowa State. And you just brought up both of those colleges while I was looking at this. Mm-hmm. The world is wild, dude.
Moral of the story,
crazy.
Strouf doesn't listen to you, Josh.
Yeah.
No, I was listening.
I was dropping knowledge bombs.
I was making eye contact and everything. To the hairy guy.
Yeah, I'm starting to think the Packers trade back.
Oh, no.
23 seems like the perfect spot.
Trade back to where, like 29?
Well, it depends. It depends on who makes what moves, where they are. I haven't memorized the board, but 23 looks like I want Jackson Dart. I didn't in the top 5 get the quarterback I wanted. I went with a better team, so I traded back into the first, get that fifth-year option, and draft a...
If the Packers aren't going to trade a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, just draft in the first round, please. If the draft is in Green Bay and you're going to have 1 million people there and 500,000 of them plus are going to be Packers fans, you got to draft somebody.
Well, I can start to tell you. It appears as if McMillan from Arizona is a guy that Goody was at his workout, the only GM in all the NFL to be there. And I've seen visits from James Pierce from Tennessee and Shamar Stewart, edge for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
So if I were to guess, if one of those two guys are there, which seems like Pierce has a better odds of being that because Shamar is one of the most athletic defensive ends in the history of the draft. If either of those guys are there, there's a good chance they end up taking them.
Also, a lot of the chatter down in Dallas is that if McMillan's there at 12, which he probably will be, it's sounding like he's a very real option. They want somebody across from CeeDee Lamb. So any receivers that Packer fans love, I think there's a good chance the Cowboys also take one of them. So that'll just be something to keep an eye on for Packer fans as well as draft night.
It's interesting you threw the Cowboys in there because the Cowboys are one of 3-4 teams in the NFL that I would say the NFL sentiment doesn't apply to them. So right now it seems in everything we're hearing and from the reliable sources, the Daniel Jeremiahs, the Mel Kipers, the guys of those level that aren't just mocking for fun, they believe that the internet and the commenters and people around it are a lot higher on McMillan than the NFL
teams are? Okay.
So he has been sliding into the back end, like the bottom 5, 6, 7 picks in a lot of drafts.
Of the first round?
Of their mocks, of the first round, yes. Which would tell you that there's likely a fall there. But a team like the Raiders, a team like the Cowboys, are the type of teams that would go, we'll take this guy because, like, I saw a thing also, and this is a wild distraction, but Jerry literally drafts guys that are on local TV in Dallas. People that he can watch end up on the Cowboys at an extraordinary amount. So all those Big 12 teams or teams in that southern region.
I got big news.
Yeah.
Packers wide receiver McCole Hardman.
Yes.
Jersey number 6.
Don't like it.
Ugh.
Single digit. That means he's fast, right? Mm-hmm. Means he's a big time receiver.
That's gross.
I like it. That means he's a huge pickup.
That should be a quarterback number.
All right, you learn something new every day. It was Sean Clifford, the last to wear number 6 for the Packers. You learn something new every day. We learned something new over the weekend, and it's been in my head ever since. So JOSHY tweeted this over the weekend, and it's legitimately one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. So the Nashville Predators, of course, the NHL team in Nashville, had an interesting national anthem prior to puck drop on Saturday. I'm just going to let Hunter roll the tape. Take a listen to the Bongo national anthem that was performed at the Nashville Predators game the other night. Okay, you get the idea, right? He's riffing on the bongos and then just singing. And it feels like there's no plan there. Right? It feels like he's just hitting the bongos just to hit the bongos and then sing the national anthem. It doesn't feel like it was an additive. It doesn't feel like it was an enhancer.
It's comparable to me and my friends after a couple brewskis stumbling upon some bongos and then just singing. Just playing. Just keep trying to keep a decent beat. Yeah. Yeah.
Sing us the song, you're the pedal man.
The two don't connect, the pace and the sound of the bongos, but we're doing because we find it funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And so the thought today, JOSHY, was, I think I could do that. Mm-hmm. So I'd like everybody to take a listen because I can do that. Here is my rendition of the Bongo National Anthem recorded in a production studio at ESPN Milwaukee. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed I nailed
at
it.
The twilight's
gleaming. There's no rhyme or reason to the pounding.
And no, it seems as if the bongo playing is just to keep yourself on pace.
I'm just slapping the desk in front of me.
You should have gotten a little more inventive. Use some of the other items.
I thought about grabbing a pen and a couple of coffee cups just to mix it up.
Yeah, a little cymbal crash somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
The
yeah.
Stinging air.
It's so good.
The
drumming has no role.
This reminds me of the Marilyn Monroe.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Yes, where it was unbelievably sensual and you felt like you shouldn't be in the room. There are times where it seems like you're trying to seduce me with your national anthem.
Oh, is that what you feel?
Well, you're not achieving seducement. You're attempting.
Listen to this drum solo.
Brave.
Nice finish there on the bongos.
Nice little crescendo.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Play ball indeed. So what I learned is I could do a bongo national anthem. I think anybody could.
Yeah. So I've seen some people do incredible, unbelievable versions of the national anthem. Jimi Hendrix famously.
Yes.
Terrific.
Unbelievable, show-stopping, one-of-a-kind, virtuoso performance. I also remember Fergie at the NBA All-Star Game.
Awful.
One of the worst things I've ever heard. This bongo anthem is in line with that Fergie one. It's in line with... The bongos aren't an instrument that you just play and sing over. The bongos are an accompaniment to other sounding because you wouldn't just sit down with a drum set.
What are you talking about?
And play the national anthem.
If I had not been slapping the desk, that anthem would have been no good.
It didn't improve it.
Any good.
It just added sound.
Play it one more time, Hunter.
Okay, fine.
He was going to ask if
Oh,
he had
say,
to.
can you see by the dawn
I mean,
early
it's as good as it
light?
That will do it for us today.
The problem here is, as much as I want to crap on you, you don't sound that far off from that guy we heard. And that's not a compliment to you. That is a
a diss to him.
Yeah,
I understand.
That is an insult to him and his It feels like a prank. It feels like something you'd see on a bad comedy movie.
He lost the bet.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go play the Broncos or the Preds game, bro.
Yeah.
He
You
lost
took last
his
place in our fantasy
league.
football league.
Also, did you see, if you find the video, because it's there, I think it was a BR Open Ice tweeted it out. It was Trevor Zegras from the Anaheim Ducks who made light of it, saying that threw us off.
They threw them off in the first period.
The video, when they cut to the bongos, they're not even like fully fledged bongos. It's just two
bongos, isn't it?
No, it just seems to be the top layer. Because when I think bongo, I think
They're
standing
tall,
on
right.
its own. It's its own device. It's just like the cover. It's such a bad idea.
It was a bad idea. But I must say, I crushed it. All right.
The booker for the national anthem needs to be fired in Nashville.
Or call me. I'll take a trip to Nashville. It's an idea. All right, we're back with you Wednesday beginning 12:30 Central, ESPN Milwaukee, ESPN Madison on YouTube. Remember, you can subscribe to Mr. Irrelevant, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Mr. Irrelevant will be the first result that pops up. Thanks to Joshy. Thanks to Hunter. I'm Alex Strouf. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Peace.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last